Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
This is KRWG, TV, radio, online, news that matters. Now, across the Mesilla Valley and the borderland, the stories that shape our community. From the KRWG Broadcast Center at New Mexico State University, this is Newsmakers.
Up front this week, what to do about New Mexico's economy. One of the poorest states in the nation is also having one of the hardest times pulling out of the Great Recession. And during the last decade, the state has fallen further and further behind the rest of the country. Recently, we sat down with a diverse group of people in Truth or Consequences, searching for solutions to a long-term problem. Rebecca Dow is on a mission. She says it's long past time for New Mexico to move forward.
Right now, I think we need hope. I think we need hope for a better future.
Dow was elected to the New Mexico State Legislature in 2016. The Republican represents District 38 in the State House, which includes parts of Grant, Hidalgo, and Sierra counties. Dow was part of a recent Solutions Journalism Network focus group in Truth or Consequences, the Sierra County town of about 6,000 people, known in these parts as T or C. Dow completed her first legislative session earlier this year and says special interests have a major voice in New Mexico politics.
I think there's a lot of special interest and a lot of the people who have the largest voice or the deepest pocket or the longest relationships in our state do get heard more. I think that's what I learned as a freshman legislator, is that to be able to get to Santa Fe and advocate for your cause definitely makes a difference.
Suspicion about special treatment runs high in T or C. Sierra County is home to one of New Mexico's biggest economic development projects. Spaceport America was launched with a public vote to approve local spaceport taxes about a decade ago. Local taxpayers have paid a portion of the $250 million cost of the facility through gross receipts taxes that were approved by voters in Sierra and Doña Ana counties. The State General Fund also provides money for its operation.
I've heard mostly that people feel like it's a boondoggle. It does seem like a boondoggle to TRC, but I mean, we've been here for a long time and heard about the spaceport for a long time, and it's still kind of, you know, a nebulous idea, even though there's a building and a sculpture.
Jessica Murphy has lived in TRC for 8 years. Another member of our focus group, she reflects the view of many here who are wary of Spaceport America. But government officials often tout the potential of the spaceport, including TRC City Manager Juan Fuentes.
We're fortunate that it is in our backyard. I think just like as any new venture, you know, it takes time to develop and grow, but not all states have a spaceport. And we know that that's a new industry that's up and coming. There's more activity going on, especially more private investment.
There couldn't be a better location than downtown TRC for our event today. We had a chance to talk to folks about the future of the city, a future that a lot of folks are hoping will be very bright if Spaceport America takes off. But of course, there are enormous concerns about the future of the spaceport and all of New Mexico. In recent years, New Mexico has faced one budget crisis after another. This has led to program cuts and a failure to provide regular cost of living adjustments for state employees, as well as many local government and university employees in departments that depend on state funding. In this environment of budget austerity, some find continued spending on what are described as economic development projects like Spaceport America particularly disturbing. Critics say the money would be better spent on inflationary adjustments in employee compensation and infrastructure, which provide both immediate and long-term benefits for the state and local economies. New Mexico's continued failure to increase education spending in line with inflation has resulted in a widening gulf between New Mexico teacher pay compared with other districts. For example, a starting teacher in Las Cruces Public Schools makes $34,000 a year. Just down Interstate 10 in El Paso, Texas, starting teachers make $48,300 a year in the El Paso Independent School District. Low pay and white-collar jobs contributes to a lagging economy that also means low pay for many blue-collar jobs. Jared Bartu of Bartu Sand and Gravel and Truth or Consequences also participated in our focus group.
It's tough. That's the hardest thing we face is finding good people. And when I find them, we try to keep them, A lot of them leave and go out of town, make more money,
U.S. Census Bureau numbers for 2016 show New Mexico's median household income was a little more than $48,000, over $10,000 less than the national median of more than $59,000. Bartu agrees education is an important priority for improving the state's economy, but he says K-12 education does not provide enough support for vocational instruction.
I learned how to weld in high school. I think they're not pushing the trades thing as much, and they're not encouraging it. Everyone's wanting to make $100,000 a year doing nothing, and that's not reality.
Along with investment in education, those who work in economic development say New Mexico must learn from other states that place a high priority on helping communities rather than spending on individual companies or industries. It's not a new idea. Companies are attracted to locations with a highly educated workforce, good infrastructure, and a high quality of life. Way back in 1986, the Committee for Economic Development said financial subsidies are rarely a significant concern in wise business location decisions and usually amount to little more than a government giveaway and burden on taxpayers, including corporate taxpayers forced to subsidize their competitors. To help with infrastructure, leaders in Truth or Consequences say additional funding is needed from the federal government.
I think a major piece of that is actually helping the smaller communities to improve their infrastructure and replace some of their infrastructure, because those are high-ticket items. And obviously, in order to recruit businesses, in order to recruit people to come into town to promote some of our economic activities, we need to make sure that we have the adequate infrastructure in place.
While everyone in our focus group agreed growth and new opportunities are needed in Tier C and all of New Mexico, there's also a yearning to hold on to the state's culture and way of life. Jessica Murphy has lived in Sierra County for 8 years, but she's a lifelong New Mexican, having grown up in Hagerman, a Chavez County town with a population of a little more than 1,200 in the 2010 census.
New Mexicans don't exactly always want things to change. We like things to be laid back. We value our clean environment, we value open spaces, and we value a quiet life. And so there's something to be said for that. Now, of course, when you compare that with demographics that show that poverty is kicking our butts, or that our kids don't have a good quality of life, there has to be some sort of balance there. But for certain, we do need to value what we have, because it's really important to a lot of people.
One bright spot in an often dismal New Mexico economy has been agriculture, but there are grave concerns about the future. The draining of a massive aquifer under parts of New Mexico and 7 other states is threatening the livelihood of farmers, ranchers, and the communities where they live and work. A recent analysis of federal data found the aquifer shrank twice as fast over the past 6 years compared with the previous 60. Some are ignoring the problem, but a rancher near Faywood, New Mexico, decided to make a difference. He found a breed of cattle that does well in the desert with less water than other breeds. Anthony Moreno reports.
John and Susie Eichhoff are used to working together and going home together. John says over 3 decades, they have only been apart a couple of times.
And except for one business trip that I made to Houston, Texas, and a stint that I spent in the hospital for 10 days, I can say in 30 years, those are the only 2 occasions we've not been together.
That stint in the hospital was due to a heart attack John suffered while being the CEO of a fast-paced, successful engineering services company that he managed with Susie. The couple say they decided just years afterward that it was time to leave the pressure cooker career and trade it in for a slower-paced ranching life in New Mexico.
We very much treasure the lower pressure, being out here in a beautiful place with beautiful scenery and around some nice docile animals, and it's a nice place to be.
Those animals are Criollo cattle. Susie Eichhoff says while trying to decide on a cattle breed, they watched as ranching friends struggled during New Mexico's recent drought.
Friends of ours had a large cattle ranch, and they were selling off their cattle because there was no grass for the cattle, there was no water for the cattle. It was very, very severe on them, and they were selling them off and getting very little money for those cattle.
The Eichhoffs say they came across research being done on Criollo cattle at the USDA's Jornada experimental range that showed this breed could adapt to the arid desert environment in southwest New Mexico. Susie says they read up on a lot of studies being done on the Criollo before selecting this breed that has been in our region for hundreds of years.
Yeah, I think this is a sustainable animal because they can survive these droughts and you know, it'll get us through the tough times.
John Eichhoff says that they're lucky to have 141 acres of land with irrigable water.
Water is a premium in this part of the country.
How much of a premium? A study by Stanford University and the University of California looked at data in 17 western states, covering more than 2 million groundwater wells. The research found that 1 in 30 wells in the West is probably dry. As for a possible solution for ranchers facing drought, researchers at the USDA's Jornada experimental range north of Las Cruces continue their work on the Criollo. Alfredo Gonzalez, an animal scientist at the range, drives out to check on a group of Criollo cattle in a pasture that he says is around 6,000 acres. Gonzalez is comparing how this group of Criollo compares to a group of Angus and Hereford crossbred to see how the cattle respond to the desert temperatures.
We're finding that they seem to be better adapted to the hot temperatures.
Gonzalez says not only does the Criollo thrive in the desert temperatures, but also by monitoring the cattle with GPS tracking collars, they found the breed can travel further from water.
They go days more without water, and they responded by going out further, and so they distribute a lot better than the Angus.
The data also includes understanding the Criollo's diet better. He says the breed is helping restore grasslands that have disappeared due to overgrazing in the state.
So with them using these areas with a lot better, a lot more diverse plants that they're utilizing, using water in a better manner and getting away from it a little bit better, I think this is all good for the remediation of our grasslands.
The Eichhoffs say the breed of cattle has improved the grasslands on their ranch.
They're grazing constantly. They're spreading seeds for us. They're fertilizing the seeds. And even with their small hoofs, they do very little damage to what's here.
Also, they say they birth easy. They've never had to pull a calf, and the breed seems to be great at avoiding disease. It's another insurance policy for this 3-person ranching operation facing conditions that ranchers in the West continue to deal with.
I'm not a pessimist, I'm just a disillusioned optimist. You know, it's really difficult to look into the negative side of things, but if it does go negative, I'm sure going to be glad there's Criollos around.
A breed that has been around hundreds of years and may offer sustainable answers for ranchers in the West. For KRWG, I'm Anthony Moreno.
Southwest Environmental Center is a nonprofit conservation organization based here in Las Cruces, New Mexico. We work to protect wildlife and their habitats in the Southwest. And we do that through advocacy, we do it through public education, and we do it through on-the-ground restoration projects. We essentially have 3 programs here. The first is Desert Waters. That includes our efforts to protect the Rio Grande, wetlands, and other streams and rivers in the Southwest, including the Gila River. A second program is Desert Lands and Wildlife, and that's essentially our efforts to protect and restore everything other than those waters in the uplands, essentially. And then our third program is Education for a Sustainable Society, and that includes our efforts to promote awareness and appreciation for the wildlife and natural heritage of the Southwest. We have been involved for probably 15 years now in the effort to protect Otero Mesa from oil and gas industrial development. These pristine grasslands that were once vast and stretched across southern New Mexico, but have largely been transformed into shrubland or developed for farming and cities. Well, Otero Mesa is where we have one of the largest intact remnants of that grassland, but it was threatened, and it continues to be threatened by oil and gas development. For 15 years now, we have essentially, and we've worked with other groups on this, we have essentially protected it from destruction. The Southwest Environmental Center office is here on Main Street, at the corner of Main Street in Las Cruces, in downtown Las Cruces. There's no charge to visit. We are open to the public Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. Well, we have a website. It's wildmesquite.org. We also are on Facebook. We also have a little eco shop here in the office, and one of the most popular items that we sell is our hiking guide. And we publish a hiking guide. It's called Day Hikes and Nature Walks in the Las Cruces, El Paso area. There are 45 hikes in there, all different degrees of difficulty, all doable in a day from either Las Cruces or El Paso. And we sell it here, and it's available at Coas Bookstore, and we hope to have it available at other locations soon. If people are interested in getting out and exploring the area, that's a great resource. There are descriptions of the hikes, there are maps, so everything you need to get out and explore the area is in the book.
Thank you for joining us for In Focus. I'm Anthony Moreno. As you may know, KRWG News is working in collaboration with nmpolitics.net and the Las Cruces Sun News on a series of investigations into behavioral health issues here in southern New Mexico. In the past, we have heard from different advocates on behavioral health issues. Today, we hear from a campus advocate. Joining us is President of NAMI on campus at New Mexico State University. Please welcome Julie Keller. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, could you start off by introducing yourself to our audience and also give us an idea about what NAMI on campus here at NMSU is about? What is your mission?
Oh, okay. So I'm Julie. I'm the president of NAMI on campus. NAMI on campus is the campus branch of the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Our purpose is to advocate for people with mental illnesses on campus in our community, to educate our community about the realities associated with mental illness, because there's a lot of stigma surrounding mental illness. And then also we act as a support group for those on campus with mental illnesses.
Now, you're president of the organization. What are some of the things that your group has been doing to, spread awareness and education about behavioral health issues on campus?
So we just started in September. It's Suicide Awareness and Prevention Month, also known as Recovery Month. So we did a candlelight vigil. We had a walk around campus and then a candlelight vigil. We're doing another candlelight vigil along with WAVE, with PHSO, and with Dr. Rao, who's part of the Suicide Task Force. And then we're also going to be participating in Recovery Night in the downtown plaza on the 25th. We're going to be tabling with NAMI Doñana County.
Now, how was the attendance at these events and the response from the campus community?
It's been pretty good. Usually with a candlelight vigil, you don't expect a whole lot of people to turn out because it's an emotional thing. But we had about 40 people turn out for our own candlelight vigil, and it was really nice. It was a good response, and people were really, they're kind of feeling the event. It was really cool.
Now, this is something that is personal for some members of your organization, is that correct?
Yeah, the thing with NAMI is that most people come to NAMI with lived experiences with mental illnesses. I have postpartum depression. I had postpartum depression after my son was born, so that's kind of what got me into it. I'm also really interested in just the advocacy and education portion because I am a nursing student, and it's really integral to the art of nursing.
Now, I'd like to hear a little bit more, if that's all right with you, about your own personal experience and really figuring out, what you needed to do in order to seek treatment for what you were going through.
So after my son was born, about 6 months after he was born, I started having a really hard time. I had just started going back to school after taking a break. It was in the spring, so classes had just started up. And I was really struggling with sleeping and with just like feelings of inadequacy as a parent, which is pretty normal with postpartum depression. And it started to affect my grades and my attendance, not necessarily attendance, but I started being tardy for class, and I was having a really hard time just getting up and going. The other thing was that in the community of Las Cruces, I didn't know where to go to find help that was specific to postpartum depression, and it just got to a point that I was feeling like I was really in crisis, and I ended up calling the crisis hotline on campus, and they helped me out, and I got some help, and I'm doing a lot better now.
Now, as far as navigating that whole process, what was it like? Was it, obviously you're dealing with, a behavioral health issue personally, but also trying to understand where to find treatment. I mean, what are your thoughts on what you experienced and, doing the work you do now, how easy is it for folks to really navigate the whole process of seeking help?
So there's a lot of resources that are available, but the problem is that when people are in crisis or going through a mental health issue, it's hard to think clearly and to be able to advocate for yourself. My own personal experience, I was able to do that because of my nursing education, but for a normal person who isn't aware of the resources that we have on campus or resources that could be in town, it could be really difficult to just navigate that system and to get in and get yourself seen in a way that's appropriate to the situation and also that's going to be helpful.
Now, as far as like just getting in to be seen by a professional to get treatment, what was your experience like? Did you have any specific wait times or anything like that you encountered?
So when I called the crisis line on campus, I spoke with a counselor. It was like an hour after I made the phone call. It happened pretty quickly, and they took me in, and I had an emergency counseling session with a counselor who I don't think is here anymore. And then after that, I was put on a wait list before I could get seen, and I ended up seeing somebody in town before the people could call me back to get off the wait list. What they're doing now, since they've moved, the counseling center used to be at Garcia Hall, and now they've moved it over to the clinic that's on campus over on Breland behind Zool. So now what they have is they still do the triage and emergency services for people who are walking in crisis, but they also have like group counseling sessions that they can refer you to get you in to see somebody just to cut down on waitlisting times, and they've actually cut down a lot on the waitlisting since they've been doing that.
Now, has your organization been able to really work with the different agencies that are available to help people who may be seeking, who may be in crisis and seeking help?
Yeah, so we're really a fledgling organization. We haven't been around for too long, but we're working really hard to establish relationships with the counseling center on campus and then also with other groups on campus who deal with mental health issues like WAVE, which is the Wellness, Alcohol, and Violence Education Program, and then the Student Association for Reproductive Rights. We've been trying to work with them, and also with the Public Health Student Organization. And so we're just really trying right now to establish a network where if someone has a mental health issue, they can come to us or to any of those other organizations, and somebody will guide them, to get the help that they need.
I mean, we're talking about just really understanding what students may be going through and also what's available for them to seek help. You mentioned you have a nursing background, so you had a general understanding of what avenues you needed to take. I'd imagine there may be many students who just have no clue. How do you reach out to those students and really make sure that they know what's available to them?
So yeah, that's a really good point. National data does suggest that only about 50% of students on campuses are aware that there are counseling services available, and then of those students, only about 50% use the counseling services. That's from the data that I've been seeing. So it's really important to advocate for other students, just to spread awareness on campus. So that's what NAMI on Campus is trying to do by hosting events and having different things. We go out and we table and we tell people, you know, hey, we're here. These are the resources that are available to you. And so that's probably the biggest thing that you can do, is just go out and like spread awareness in the community that there are resources available, and that you know, these are symptoms of mental illness. So this is what you do when you have these symptoms.
Now, I want to thank you for, you know, in sharing your story, but also for those people who may be encountering folks who may be dealing with behavioral health issues. How do other college students approach, you know, their friends who may be struggling, or how do professors approach, how should they approach a student who may be, you know, dealing with some issues?
So really the most important thing when you're approaching somebody who you believe has, who's struggling with mental illness, is that you really just be upfront with them and you be honest with them, and you say, hey, you know, I can tell that something's not right, or what's going on with you, you know, and not in a confrontational way, of course, but in a meaningful and sincere way, because most people are afraid to speak about mental illnesses. There's a lot of stigma surrounding it. So if you just act really matter of fact with people and let them know that it's okay to talk and it's okay to not be okay, then, you know, that can open up a pathway of communication between yourself and someone who's struggling with mental illness.
Wow. What are some of the ways that folks can find out more information about your organization, or you know, NAMI in general?
We do have a Facebook page. NAMI NMSU, I believe, is our Facebook page, and then there's NAMI Doñana County. They also have a Facebook page. On the NAMI national website, there's a link to get to Doñana County and NAMI. So there you can find information on the local services that NAMI Doñana County offers, and then our Facebook page usually makes events for when we have meetings and for when we are doing services around campus.
Julie Keller, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you being here and also just sharing your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we want to thank you for joining us for In Focus. I'm Anthony Moreno. Remember, you can always keep up with us on social media, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter for the latest news. Thank you.
That's our time for now. Join us this week on KRWG Radio. Every weekday, it's Morning Edition, 5 to 9. Fresh Air at 11, followed by Here and Now, noon to 2, and All Things Considered, 4 to 7. KRWG News is always online at krwg.org, and we'd love to hear from you. Email us with your story ideas and video submissions. The address is feedback@nmsu.edu. For all of us at KRWG News, I'm Fred Martino. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Newsmakers.